Hello. Hello, KP Heathen. How are you? Thanks for joining in. Maganda Bug from Malaysia. How are you doing? Thanks for joining in. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, I'm going to wait and see if we get a few more people in here. I just wanted to share some things. I'm sure I've shared them before. But I'm sure KP and Maganda, you probably know a little bit about my channel, which is the Virginia Bushcrafter. And Abe, Pennsylvania Preparedness, hello. Rebecca Touch by Yarn, hello. Yeah, I'm glad to see you guys, and I know it's relatively late, but we have to share our time. So yeah, so I just I know all you guys. I've met you before, and again, I am the Virginia Bushcrafter, and as you know, my channel is about bushcrafting, prepping, and survival skills. And I constantly say, learn and practice, which is very, very enjoyable, especially for me. Hello, Flat Broke Outdoors. How are you from Arkansas? Thanks for dropping in. I definitely appreciate it. Yeah, guys. So I'm sure you know bushcrafting is something I'm somewhat very passionate about. Hello, Teresa. I'm very passionate about bushcrafting because I find it to be just so enjoyable being out there in the bush, listen to all the quietness, the challenges that it brings. Actually just walking into the bush, trying to stay safe, listen to the birds chirping, the squirrels barking, turkeys gobbling. Sometimes you even hear the deer run through. So, yeah, I really enjoy being in the bush. And that's one of the things I just want to chat about tonight. But so one thing I really want to emphasize though is shelter. We all know the importance of shelter. Even when we're at home, we have our blankets, electric blankets, and everything. But when we go into the bush, where the weather is warm or cold, we want to be prepared for that. So I'm sure you've heard before that your clothing is your first line of shelter. So in the summertime, I'm basically wearing something that is wicking material, such as something that is nylon or polyester to help wick that sweat away. And in the summer, I also wear snake boots, boots that go up to my calves. And the reason that I wear the snake boots when I'm bushcrafting is again is to prevent bites from a snake if I happen to run across them, but also preventing ticks because ticks usually start from the bottom, from what I understand, and they work their way up. So if I have on snake boots that go all the way to my calves, that's going to help prevent ticks, and also spray them with some type of DEET. So that's one measure that I take. Also, now we know during the winter months, it's always cold. It's always cold. So we always want to dress accordingly. So because you can get hypothermia really quickly. Tick on me. Wow, in 34 years the other day. Wow, that's something that ticks, and again, I may be jumping all over the place, but I heard that ticks are the number one, it's the most dangerous um, animal or whatever in the bush. I heard there were 5 of them that were really, really dangerous. And the first one I heard are the cats, the bobcats, mountain lions, and so forth. The second one was the bear. The third one was a moose. The second dangerous is a snake, and the most dangerous is a tick because of the disease that you can catch from a tick. So, but anyway, when it comes to clothing, um, you know, I want to make sure that even if I don't have a tarp or something, that I can lean against a tree and I can huddle up and be warm. So, clothing is very important, whether the temperature is hot or whether the temperature is cold. Your clothing is your first line of defense. The next thing that I consider is a tarp. Now, I like tarps much better than tents. Tents are great, and tents, I like tents for privacy. But when I'm in the bush, I prefer a tarp because you can make so many configurations that you can actually block wind. They're very light. They're very portable, and also like the 5x7 tarps that have the mylar on the inside because that reflects the heat. So even if you're in an emergency situation, you can just wrap that tarp around you, and the heat that your body generates, it will reflect from that tarp. So that's the reason why I like tarps a lot. Again, I'm just looking at my notes, and then there are many type of tarps: 5x7, 9x12s, 10x10s, which I'm finding out I like the 10x10s even more because, again, you can make so many different configurations. And what I'm trying to do is each time I go into the bush, I want to make a different configuration using the 10x10 tarp. And to me, it's a lot of fun and it's challenging. Now, another thing that you can do for shelter in the bush is Mother Nature. If you're in an emergency situation, you can just get a pile of leaves. Just make a pile of leaves and get in that pile of leaves, and you're going to generate heat, and that is a sufficient shelter for an emergency situation. Now, so the tarp, I look at, if you're going to be there for a day or two, that's great. But if you want to be there long term, you actually want to construct a debris shelter. Now, they require a lot of work, but they're fun. The debris shelters, yeah, they are great. I definitely agree with you, Pennsylvania Preparedness. And they're a lot of fun to make, but they're also challenging. The first one, hey, Fishing, thanks for dropping in. The first one that I made, it was a lean-to debris shelter. And I constructed it rather quickly just by using a tree branch that fit into the Y of another tree. And I took some branches that are known as spines, and I leaned them up diagonally against that branch. And then I took a lot of greenery and just put them going in a downward direction. And I threw a bunch of leaves on top of there. And that was a lot of fun. And then that makes you just want to do more and more. So the next year, I wanted to repeat that, which I did. And then became a little overzealous. So I wanted to enclose the front. So I came back that next week, and I enclosed the front. And the next week, I wanted to enclose the head portion just to allow me to go in the debris shelter. Now, this is again about learning. I spent the night in that debris shelter, but the problem that I had is that my fire was, for me, too far away. I usually like to keep my fire about 3 feet away from me, but every time I got into that shelter, I honestly felt claustrophobic. And by the time I got comfortable in the shelter, I had to get back out and feed that fire. So, but it was fun. It was challenging. And the other thing that the mistake or something I learned is that when I made the shelter, the um, well, it's known as a ridge line, the large branch that went slightly upward. It was about 3 feet, and I'm about 6 feet. And every time I went in, I would bump my head. So, but that was a good experience. I really enjoyed that. So, again, just touching up on shelter, your clothing is your first line of shelter, followed by a tarp or a tent. I mean, tents are great. They're easy to put up. And the thing about a tent, especially in the summer, I don't worry about the critters because I know I'm totally enclosed. I'm zipped up and everything. And then you have the debris shelter, and that's fun because it is made from Mother Nature. And I think from what I've learned is that Mother Nature provides you with every single thing that you need in the bush. Even if you are in the bush and you have nothing but a rock, if you know how to make that rock sharp, you then have a knife. So again, they say Mother Nature provides you with shelter, it provides you with food, it provides you with water, and it provides you with fire. So the next thing that I want to talk about, and I'm somewhat really like passionate about this, is making fires. The order of things, they say it's shelter, water, food, fire, and I added signaling. But I think in order it would be shelter, then fire, because you're going to need fire to prepare your food. You're going to need water. You're going to need fire to boil water or prepare your drinks. And that fire just brings some comfort around you. Um, so that's why I think fire is the second most important thing. Now, when it comes to fire, I do believe in bringing man-made tinder, do-it-yourself tinder, which I always bring cotton balls and Vaseline all the time. And I also bring Gorilla Tape, because if you take the Gorilla Tape and you pull it into strands, the edges are they're easy to catch a spark from your ferrocerium rod. But for the challenge, I like to use what's in Mother Nature, which is sometimes bark from a cedar tree. But what I've run into lately in my area, there's been a lot of rain, and the bark from the cedar is always wet. And I haven't been in the areas where I can gather birch bark. Now, birch bark is very, very oily, and it takes a spark very well. So, but sometimes I'll even bring some cedar in with me and make a a nest egg or a tinder bundle. And I'll do that sometime and use what's known as flint and steel. But again, when it comes to the fire, you want to make sure you have some tinder. Now, the thing about making fires, you really have to prepare those fires correctly. You have to make sure you have something that is combustible, that's going to throw sparks. And again, for me, that's a ferrocerium rod or flint and steel. I've yet to take on the challenge of making a bow drill or a hand drill or a plow drill. That's something that I've got to try. So I'm going to have a ferrocerium rod, something that's combustible, and I'm going to have something that is tender, my cotton ball and Vaseline, or my cedar bark that I can make a tinder bundle, or I'm going to have some birch bark. And sometimes I would even bring fat wood with me. I would scrape that fat wood, make fat wood dust, or I just bring some pieces of fat wood. But I prefer, when I go into the bush, I prefer to harvest my fat wood, especially when it's wet. So once you have your something that's combustible, your tinder bundle, it's you have to harvest um, wood, and you want to get something that is very starting off with something that's very thin, like a pencil, or too thick. You want to get some twigs, and even when the twigs are wet, the thinner they are, they accept the spark much easier, or they accept flame much easier. So you're going to have your uh, small branches, or very, very small. They call it your fuel. But the next thing you're going to have is, in fact, your fuel, which is going to be maybe something that's thumb size or larger. And that's going to be something to sustain the fire. So you're going to have that ferrocerium rod, or for me, the ferrocerium rod or the flint steel. Get a spark, get your tinder bundle going. I'm going to put twigs on there to get some flames going. And then I'm going to put larger pieces of wood on there, which is the fuel, and just feed that ever so slightly to build that fire up until it becomes sustainable. Now, the last couple of times that I have been into the bush, I would tell you I have really had some difficulties keeping that fire going because the wood was wet. And then that, to me, that's another challenge, because if it's wet, I'm determined to show that I'm going to get a fire, because I know the middle of that wood is dry. So a lot of times on my videos, I'll show the beginning of what I'm doing, but sometimes it will take me 30 or 45 minutes to actually get all of the wood together to make that fire. But the thing is, you want to make sure you put the right time, effort into getting all your materials ready to make that sustainable fire. And to me, once the fire starts, it's like, well, most of the fun is gone. But that's the important thing. So I'm looking at my notes here: tinder, cotton ball and Vaseline, fat wood, cargo tape, your ferrocerium rod. And also with the ferrocerium rod, make sure that you have a knife that has a 90-degree spine. You can use that to create your sparks. But the ferrocerium rods that I have, they have a striker with them. But also something that I carry into the bush with me with my fire box is matches and lighters to use in the event that nothing works, or in a dire emergency. We all know we can strike that match and get something started, or we can flick that bic and get a flame. But to me, where's the challenge? I want to learn. So, but again, I always carry a lighter and matches in with me. So, and I advise everyone to do that, because you just don't know when you may run into an emergency and need all of those things. So, yeah, so your shelter, your fire. Now, water, very, very important. When I'm walking into the bush, I want to make sure that I'm hydrated. So I will sip on Gatorade as I'm walking to my destination. And I always carry a 40-ounce clean canteen, 40 ounces of water, along with another 24-ounce container. And these containers are single wall, so that if necessary and I need to boil water, I can. Now, a lot of times I would bring almost close to a gallon of water if I am going to a location and the training or the subject matter is not concentrated on water. I want to make sure I have enough water to extinguish that fire. Now, but with the water, sometimes I will intentionally carry less water and go to an area where I have to source the water. Now, when it comes to the water, you want to make sure that you filter the water. And what I will use is a bandana. I will put that over the mouth of the clean canteen. and that's going to help keep debris from going in. But and also you want to go to running water. Now, the locations that I have gone to, I know where the water is coming from. It's coming from upstream. So I'm pretty safe with that water. I know where it's coming from, but I still want to filter that water. Now, also, I have, in fact, used the mini Sawyer. Fill that up, and it comes with a filter. That's great. And there are also ways to filter water with rocks, sand, and charcoal, which I have not explored that. But when I am going to an area and I purposely want to practice sourcing water, I'm going to filter that water. I'm going to take it to my camp, and I'm going to boil that water for at least 10 minutes. Now, I understand if you are, I believe it's 6,500 feet above sea level, you only have to boil it 1 minute. And if you're below, it's 3 minutes. But I take the extra precaution to boil it for 10 minutes. I've done that several times, and the water turns out fine. And the thing about it, the water tastes refreshing because you don't taste all of the fluoride or the chlorine and so forth. But also, when it comes to purifying your water, that's what I do. I purify it by boiling it. You can use aqua tablets. And I used to carry those with me. If I'm going to be gone maybe 3 days, which I haven't, or I'm with someone else, I would carry aqua tablets as well as iodine and a small portion of bleach. I did that when I was with a group with two other guys, and I brought those, and I did not reveal that, but I had that just in case because we did source water. So again, you want to make sure that you filter your water as best you can. And again, my method is using a bandana, or you can use a shamag. Anything that's going to stop the debris, it's great. So once you filter the water, you want to make sure that you purify that water. Again, the method that I feel very comfortable with is boiling the water, but I'm sure I would be comfortable with using aqua tablets as well as some iodine and bleach. So, and again, many times we hear that we can go 3 days without water. And I truly believe that. But also, can you imagine being in the bush and you are putting up a shelter, you're harvesting wood, you're processing wood, and it takes energy to even just be very cautious of everything that you're doing? It's going to be very, very difficult to go 3 days without water, because when you are depleting your body of water, each day your body is going to become weaker. And by the third day, I just don't know if you could your body can tolerate that. So my thing is to make sure, I know I do, when I go in, I make sure I have more than enough water. Now, what I've done lately also, like I said, I would carry water to extinguish a fire. But the last 2 or 3 times I've gone into the bush, the ground has been so wet that I was able to use the soil, the dirt, the mud to help extinguish that fire. And then I will pour water on that and put my hand on it to make sure I feel no warmth. So those are some very, very important things. Again, shelter, your fire, and your water. And then the next thing I consider is the food. Even when I'm going in just for a day, I make sure that I have snacks in both of my cargo pockets. I have this thing about trying to make things evenly. So I would carry 2 granola bars in the left cargo pocket, 2 granola bars in the right pocket, or in addition to some fruit snacks in the left pocket, cargo pocket, as well as fruit snacks in the right pocket. That is just something to keep me from not getting hungry. So I can have a granola bar, have something to drink, and I will always drink some type of sports drink before I'm drinking water to keep the electrolytes inside of me. So I would snack on that while I'm out harvesting wood. I would snack on that while I'm processing wood because I don't want to experience any hunger while I'm in the bush. Now, when I go into the bush just for one day, I I make sure that I take enough food for a day and a half. Even though I'm going for one day, I may take, again, you may see the potatoes the French fries that I make with my junk food. I like to make those burgers. I can assure you I have some ramen noodles or some type of spaghetti or something else in my rucksack in the event that I get stranded in the bush. So take more food than what you anticipate you will need. Another thing that I'm studying now is being able to forage food. Now, again, Mother Nature provides you with everything you need. Mother Nature is going to provide you with berries, nuts, uh, edible plants. It's just learning all of those and knowing how to prepare them. I think the only thing I have harvested so far is just some acorns and pine needle tea because I'm actually now studying. I think what I have here, I'm learning, studying this thing called foraging for wild edible foods. Um, and it's pretty good. There's a lot of information in here. But this is just something I picked up offline. Hello, Prepared Irishman. Thanks for dropping in, man. Hey, guys, I really appreciate all you guys coming in. Just trying to, give information that I've learned. But again, when it goes back to the food, oh, yes, bag of salt, snare wires, and flint and steel. Excellent. Yeah. But again, you want to be able to forage food. Also, fishing. Now, the thing about, and again, I try to remain as primitive as possible. So with your bank line, with your 550 paracord, there are 7 strands in there and one of those strands you can actually use for a fishing line, as well as number 36 bank line. The 36 bank line you can use for fishing. You can use part of the paracord for fishing. And then the thing is hooks. I carry the tops or the top openers, just part in my rucksack. If I want to make a hook, I can make a fishing hook from that. But what's even better, I carry fishing hooks with me. Now, I don't, in fact, eat meat at all. I don't eat fish. I don't eat chicken or red meat or anything like that. But that's not to say in an emergency that I won't. I haven't for a very, very, very long time. But to me, that's part of practicing and learning and being able to survive if necessary. So you want to make sure that you do, in fact, have more food than the time length that you are going to be there. So again, that's the shelter, the fire, the water, the food, and the next thing is signaling. Signaling, I'll give you something that happened to me once. I was in the bush. This is when I first started. And I harvested a lot of wood. And I did not want to leave that wood there. So I put it in my rucksack. So I know I had about maybe 55 to 65 pounds worth of wood. And I started to trek out of the bush. But I noticed I was not getting closer to my car because I was using a compass, and this time had my heels dug in that I'm going to trust my compass, trust your compass. But my compass, and I had a GPS system, but the GPS system kept telling me I'm going further and further away from my vehicle, but I'm going to trust this compass. So I got to the point, it's like, maybe I should just call the game warden and tell them that I'm lost. But it's like, I don't want to waste their time and taxpayers' money, because it's only 3 p.m. So I start thinking, well, this compass does have a mirror. If need be, that's one thing that I can signal with. I also have a bandana with me, an orange bandana. That's another signaling device. I have a whistle. That's a signaling device. And with a whistle, there is a universal language. 3 short blows, 3 shorts, 3 longs, 3 shorts. A universal language to know that I need help. So you're going to have my compass that has a mirror. I'm going to have an orange bandana. I'm going to have a whistle. And a lot of times I'm going to have a tarp that is mylar. And I'm going to have Gorilla Tape that I can make an X on the back. So signaling is very, very, very important. Even if you are lost, remain calm. With your orange bandana, you can hang that up at one location, and you can do I'm not sure what they call it, but you can walk 20 yards north, south, east, and west. And you can always come back to that orange bandana. But if you continue to spread that distance, as long as you can see that orange bandana, you're going to be fine. Hey, hello, X21 Reviews, Mac Bean. I definitely appreciate you guys coming in. But yes, signaling is very, very, very important. So those are things that I carry. Because, and even it's called trail marker tape. It's orange tape. If I want to go away from my camp, which I've done before, and even though I know my way back to my camp, I'm going to use the marker tape, the orange marking tape, because the thing is, you don't want to take a chance and getting lost in the bush. It is very, very easy to do. That has happened to me before. I went into the bush with a friend of mine. We harvest some wood, enjoyed a meal, and when it was time to leave, we thought we would exiting the same location that we entered. Well, that was not the case, because when you're in the bush for a while and you're turning around and you're becoming exhausted and so forth, it can look the same. So, it's very, very important to just be aware of your surroundings in the bush, have a signaling device, have the game warden's 800 number. You don't want to get lost in the bush. And again, it's very easy. I remember some time ago, many, many years ago, another person said to me, go into the bush about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, close your eyes, and turn around a few times. I did not understand why he said that. He's an avid hunter, and to me, it just did not make sense. But many years later, I understand what he means, because when you're in the bush, a lot of things can look the same when you've been there for a while. But these are just some of the points I wanted to touch upon. I think it's important to keep these things in mind because for me, everything is built in the bush. All the fun comes from a shelter, a fire, water, wood, and signaling. Everything is built around that. Um, and another thing about being in the bush, a lot of times it seems very, very pleasurable, and it is. But it can be exhausting. But the exhausting portion, to me, it's fun. It's challenging. Um, you know, I've been in the bush and I've stayed overnight by myself. And the longest I've stayed is one night by myself. I've stayed overnight with other guys before, maybe 2 nights. But I think the real test for an individual who is very, very serious about bushcrafting is to stay there 3 days and 2 nights, because you would then see how this shelter, the fire, the water, the food, and the signaling all comes into play. You will use all of that at some point in time. So that's one of my challenges. The hard work. So I really truly enjoy going into the bush, and I go as much as I can. But again, now I've mentioned those 5 things. I'll just tell you about some of my experiences there. You're going to always learn something each time you go. You're going to learn some things and realize you're going to learn what you don't know. You're going to always learn something. And some things that you do that become repetition, sometimes they just won't work. And you have to do them 2 or 3 times. So, sometimes it has to do with weather. One of the examples is going into the bush and using a certain knot that works all the time, but because of the frigidness of the coldness, you just can't get this knot to work. And okay, well, now I'm just going to take the gloves off and let my fingers get cold. And the knot still, you can't do this knot. But what I learned from that particular incident, what I was doing was hanging up my rucksack using the 550 paracord, and I use a Prusik knot to actually hold a piece of wood to hang my rucksack on. But the Prusik knot kept sliding, it wouldn't hold. And what I learned is that sometimes the diameter of the 550 paracord, you must remove the strands to make the diameter smaller so that it will catch on the larger piece of 550 paracord. I hope I explained that, but explained it well. But those are little things that you learn in the bush. And another thing is that I'm always saying, learn and practice. Well, even when you take your tools out there with you, your hatchet or your axe, your knife, your saw, you're always going to learn something. Just learning to properly use an axe, there is some difference in using an axe and a hatchet. Again, a hatchet is going to be something that you can wield with one hand very efficiently, whereas with an axe, I'm always using 2 hands. And an axe is great for splitting wood, where many times I would use a knife. But these are things that you learn. And what I've learned now is that I want to use an axe more to split wood as opposed to using my knife. My knives are great for splitting wood that does not have a large diameter, but I just find pleasure and fun being successful with actually taking a hatchet or an axe, laying that wood down and being able to split it. And the challenge comes because when you are in the bush, you're not going to get those even chopping blocks. You're not going to get that solid ground to put that wood on to split. You're going to have to make some type of prop to split that wood. And you're going to have to be very, very careful. It's always in my mind. You do not want the edge of that axe or hatchet to hit you in any form or fashion. Because if you're by yourself and you accidentally cut yourself or hit yourself with that axe, I'm sure it can be very, very devastating. So those are precautions to take with the cutting tool. I'm always keeping in mind, again, when I'm using a knife to cut away from me, keep that edge going in the opposite direction. However, there have been times when I've caught myself with the knife within what's called the blood circle. And here again, you want to catch yourself like, nope. But those things will happen when you're tired. And sometimes when you're tired, put the cutting tool down. Just put it down and think of something else. Just go stack the wood or do something, because you do not want to handle sharp objects when you're tired. Give your mind a rest and start again. So again, with those cutting tools, that axe, that knife, and that saw, what I really use that saw for, I know I want to cut something a specified length. That's what I'm going to use that saw for. I like the saws that cut on the push and the pull. But I have saws that do that cut on the push and the pull, as well as a saw that cuts only on the pull. And the last 2 times I went out, I used the saw that cut saws only on the pull. And there is a difference, big difference, but I carried that particular saw because it was lighter, and I did not anticipate cutting any logs that were 10 or 11 inches. So these are things that you just learn from going into the bush. Worst cut was a Baco. Yeah. Oh, my worst was a weight inch. Yeah, I have a Baco Laplander, and it has a 7-inch blade, 7.5 teeth per inch. I like it. I really do like it. However, it is not my main saw, but I will always carry that with me as a backup saw. Again, you have many, many saws to choose from. The saws that I carry, I have a large saw that I bought at a big box store. I really like it. A Corona saw that comes from another big box store, 10-inch blade. Has some other. I have this other saw that's 6-inch that was made in Finland. But the Baco Laplander, I'm always going to carry it with me as a backup saw. And people may say, "Why do you need 2 saws?" That's just how I am. You never know when a blade is going to break on a saw. But if you treat your tools right, you're not going to have that problem. But I was 6 years younger, and I'd be out there. Yeah. The saw is very, very important. And every time I go into the bush, I'm going to have a hatchet or an axe. I'm definitely going to have a knife. And again, I like knives that are 7 to 10 inches. Even though I've carried knives that are smaller, I like knives that are 7 to 10 inches. In the event that I want to baton some wood that has, I feel better if I have 7 to 10 inches because I have a larger blade to cut something that's maybe 6 or 7 inches. But I always carry a Bushcraft knife, a Scandinavian grind knife. That is going to be in my rucksack regardless. I have one that's 4 inches. I have one that's 5 inches. One of the two it's going to be in my rucksack. I'm always going to carry a Scandinavian grind knife as in addition to any other knife. Now, those are tools that I'm always going to carry. Again, a multi-tool that has a saw on it as well, that and also has a blade. Because I think, again, I remember one content creator said, I asked him this question: what is your most valuable tool that you would take into the bush? And he replied, his brain, which is great. I agree with that. But he said the next thing is a knife. And because with that knife, he can do anything. And I feel the same way. With a knife in the bush, you can you can survive. It's just learning the skills. What I'm finding out, there's a lot to learn with a knife, uh, from just practicing and using it to maintaining that knife, keeping it sharp, keeping the rust off. Um, so maintaining the knife, uh, uh, you don't want to have to sharpen your knife, for me, more than twice a year. If you just hone the edges, keep the edges straight, removing the edges, your knife will stay sharp, because every time you sharpen that knife, you are removing metal. So that's a very good point. Always yep. Matthew says, new here. I'm always have my kit just in case. Yeah, that's so true, guys. I'm not ignoring the chat here, but these are just some things that I want to share, because I'm finding out there's just so much pleasure being in the bush, connecting with Mother Nature. For me, I would say it's a good escape. We have so much hustle and bustle during the week, and to me, I just find pleasure going out there, knowing there's an abundance of wood, so I'm always going to have a fire. I know in so many directions that I walk, I'm going to find a water source, and I know I can purify, I can filter, I can purify that water. And I know I'm going to get to the point that I'm going to feel comfortable game warden. Um, I always let a person know where I am. Um, Now, the thing is, the person that knows where I am, they may be able to come to the kiosk, but they're not coming into the woods. But I will tell you, in my jurisdiction, many of the wildlife management areas that I go to, I have had the game warden to actually come and check on me at 2 or 3 in the morning. Now, they would drive their vehicle to a certain area, and I would see them shine the light, and they know it's me, and I know it's them. So it's always good to be in an area that there's 24-hour, um, let's say, law enforcement around. And I'm really glad that in my jurisdiction that I'm allowed to practice these primitive tasks, or these primitive ways of living. Um, I mean, so many areas that we go to now, we are restricted from making fires, or we have to make a fire in a fire ring. The only thing they ask is that you leave the area better than it was when you got there, and I do my best to do that. So, it's I'm in the Northern Virginia area, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. I get out in the bush as much as I can. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to going out there this weekend, because this weekend, I want to talk strictly about a bushcraft knife. There are so many knives. There's a survival knife, there's a hunting knife, there's a defensive knife, so many type of knives, but there is particularly task that's done much better with a bushcraft knife. So I think that warrants its own time to talk about that. So that's what I'm going to do this weekend. That's my plan, is to go in there and really talk in depth about a bushcraft knife. So, and again, I don't know, one of the cutting tools that I really like a lot is a kukri. Um, I like the forward weight of the kukri. Um, you can do so many things with a kukri. You can use it. I think it's called as a draw blade. They work really well in that aspect. I do have a kukri machete. I have a few kukris, and I mean they really work well. But one of the things that I do, and I don't mean to ramble on, is that I like to take a different cutting tool or a different knife into the bush each time I go, because I want to become as proficient as I can with any cutting tool. For an example, if I take a knife in there and it has what's called a saber grind, and that's something else I'll speak about, I want to be able to make feather sticks with a saber grind just as well as making feather sticks with a Scandinavian grind. Or if I use a hollow grind, I want to be able to perform some of the tasks just as well as I do with a Scandinavian grind or a saber grind. I think it just basically comes down to fundamentals of using a cutting tool. And I really feel that it comes from practicing, and more so practicing in the bush. I have actually taken cutting tools and done things here at my residence in my backyard very, very easily, felt very, very comfortable. But it's not until you go into the bush and you're able to duplicate what you did at home, and you want to even make it better. Um, so there are some things that I'm looking forward to really sharing uh, in the bush. But it's just, I just encourage people, hey, take advantage of the nature that we have and just go out there and have some fun, whether you're bushcrafting, whether you're hiking, or whether you're camping, fishing, hunting. It is just something that you cannot go to a store and purchase. You can't, for me, I know I can't. You can't purchase it. So, guys, I just wanted to come in here, have a little late night chat with you guys, and really talk about again the things that are very, very important in the bush. Again, your shelter, your fire. You won't survive in the bush long term without a fire. Your water, your food, and a signaling device or devices. So, guys, with that said, I want to say, hey, thanks for joining me. I definitely appreciate it. I will go back and read all the everything in the chat. If there's any questions, I will definitely reach out to you and answer that. So, with that said, guys, hey, join me this weekend, which I'm looking as planned Sunday, to be in the bush, to make a shelter, and to talk about a bushcraft knife. And once I do that, I must make a fire. So I will see you guys this Sunday. Just keep our thumbs up that everything works out well. I'm able to get out this Sunday. So far, I see that I am. So I'll see you guys then. Take care, and thanks for coming in, everyone. You definitely are appreciated. See you.